Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. And of course, it is Memorial Day, so we are thinking about those that we lost in all of the wars in American history. So our thoughts very much with them and with our families today. But Krystal, what do we have today?
Lots of big updates continuing to come out regarding that horrific mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. I mean, every day that goes by, we learn about more unconscionable failures, more lies that were told to us from the beginning. Actually, some admissions of just how catastrophically bad the response was there. So we'll get into all of that. There's also then the political fallout, politicians, how they are responding to that. The president and the first lady made a trip down to Texas in response. We've got some new polling about gun safety measures and what the public might support in that regard. Pretty interesting numbers.
Yes, very interesting, I think.
The partisan breakdown is also a little bit surprising, maybe a little bit different than you would think. We're also learning that the Justice Department is not going to charge those FBI agents who completely dropped the ball on that Nassar investigation, pushing it off, allowing him to go on and continue to victimize women and girls. Horrific outcome to this story, so we've got those details for you. And a little bit of friendly fire between some Fox News personalities. We'll bring you that as well, as there's some people who just want to say, whatever law enforcement did, it's fine. Others are saying, hold on a second, this was not good whatsoever. So we'll tell you about that. And also, guys, we are celebrating a big anniversary here at Breaking Points. This week is 1 year since the launch of the show. So we want to take a little bit of time, first of all, to say thank you to you guys, and also to tell you everything that we've tried to build this year, what our plans are going forward. So we'll save that for the end of the show. But we did want to start with the very latest from that mass shooting in Texas. Authorities now admitting that law enforcement made the wrong call by waiting upwards of an hour to even try to breach the door that the madman was behind, locked into a classroom, massacring children. Let's take a listen to a little bit of that press conference from last week.
With the benefit of hindsight, stand by, right? I got it. Okay. Hey, from the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision. Period. There's no excuse for that.
Thank you for doing this, and I do hope you stay here and take as many questions as possible. You say there were 19 officers gathered in the hallway or somewhere. What efforts were made to try and break through that door? You say it was locked. What efforts were the officers making to try and break through either that door or another door to get inside that classroom?
None at that time. The on-scene commander at the time believed that it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject.
So there were 19 cops standing outside of the door of those classrooms where those kids were being murdered, where they were bleeding to death, in desperate need of medical care. They did not even try to breach the door. And as you see, I mean, they can't even defend it.
Yeah, they're just
they can't even try to defend it.
Same guy who was super triumphant, the day after. He's like, law enforcement.
Thank you to law enforcement.
And he's also the one who lied
response.
to all of us, Krystal, Steve McCraw. He's the director of Texas Public Safety. He said that there was an active shooter in Garrett, that there was a school resource officer who engaged that shooter. What do we know now? So resource officer's not even on the scene.
And that's just one. I can't even keep track of all the lies now in this story.
Right.
But that one example of what the hell was happening with the school resource officer, we literally got 4 different versions of the story. First, the school resource officer was there on the scene. He was chasing. They exchanged gunfire. Then he chased him into the building, but there was no gunfire. Then, he didn't chase him into the building, but he was there. And then finally we come to learn he wasn't even there at the school. I mean, that's just one example of the lies that we were told about this thing from the beginning. And so there's a little bit of a sense that they've realized they've screwed this thing up so badly that they can't do anything else but admit, yeah, maybe we should have gone in and not waited an hour. And by the way, they would have waited longer.
Oh,
but
yeah,
the Border
that's
Patrol
right.
finally said, screw this, we're going in and we're taking this guy
Thank God for
out.
those guys, seriously.
But
Yeah.
because we've been lied to so much about this response, I certainly don't feel like even now we have the whole story. Various news outlets, and I'll get to this in just a minute, have been trying to piece together based on eyewitness accounts, videos that were posted online, surveillance footage, what the authorities are actually saying, trying to piece together the timeline of how and when this all went down. And the details are just unconscionable. But, you know, maybe one of the most honest things we heard out of all of the spin is the real reason they didn't go in. Why? They were afraid that they were going to get shot. This is a spokesperson with the Texas Department of Public Safety being pressed on CNN. Take a listen.
Correct. The active shooter situation, you want to stop the killing, you want to preserve life, but also one thing that, of course, the American people need to understand is that officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. At that point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where this suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. And at that point, that gunman would have the opportunity to kill other people inside that school.
Everything else is just spin and rationalization. They were scared. That's the bottom line.
They were afraid. You're going to be going deep into your monologue, which is that they violated the basic tenets of active shooter training.
Yes.
They tell you, no matter what, if you are the first person on the scene, even if you were the only person on the scene, they say in no uncertain terms, you have to put your life on the line in order to save children. And I really hope, look, I put this out there, which is, I'm sympathetic to anybody who doesn't want to do that. But that's a decision to make before you become a cop, not after you become the cop. And federal agents basically have to mount, a coup against the on-site commander and say, you know what, you're full of it, we're all going in. And that timeline you alluded to came out yesterday. Let's put this up there on the screen where they talk about 78 long minutes. And this thing, guys, I mean, it is brutal to read because it just goes minute by minute. It shows videos and it shows quotes of police officers who are keeping parents out of the school. You have parents who are begging the police officers in order to go in. They describe the multiple long minutes, somewhere around 40 minutes, Krystal, that 19 officers were in the hallway being held up before being able to go inside. I mean, the one I just can't get out of my head is this little girl who's inside the classroom who makes 3 separate 911 calls in which she asks and says, please send the police in. She can hear the police, ask them to come in. Also, there's a report now that actually from one of the children who was in the room, just to give you an idea of how screwed up the situation is that they said, hey, if anybody needs help, yell help. Kid yells help. Gunman is still alive, comes over and shoots that kid and actually kills him. So you have a botched response, not only in terms of the initial contact, it is clear also that the holdup on that cost lives. That's one of the spin that they're gonna try and put out there. It's like, well, everybody was already dead. Apparently that was the justification for the on-site commander. Now, I did some digging into this on-site commander. It is not the Uvalde Police Department. Uvalde ISD, Independent School District, has its own police department.
Right.
The chief of that police department, which has 6 officers, yes, 6, basically very inexperienced, that was the guy who was in charge, and he's the one who made all these idiot calls and held up Border Patrol and all these other tactical units from even going on inside. So clearly he's, not just a fool.
Well,
I mean, frankly, I think he should go to prison, but I don't know if the laws work that way.
Also, interesting side note, he actually was just elected to the city council, that dude.
Oh my God.
And I don't think he's been sworn in yet, but yeah, he's elected to the city council. And while certainly the bulk of the blame falls on him, since he made that decision, making this excuse of, oh, it's not an active shooter anymore, this is more akin to a hostage situation, and we just assumed everybody was dead. Well, you're getting 911 calls from the room. One little girl, as you mentioned multiple times, but there were multiple phone calls placed from inside that room saying, please help us. So for a fact there are people who are alive in that room. Not to mention, I mean, God, some of the reports are so horrific to imagine. One little girl who survived by smearing herself in the blood of her friends and pretending to be dead. The friend she was laying on top of was initially breathing, and then because the response was so long and she's unable to get medical care, she died. I mean, you had kids who might have been saved who bled out on that classroom floor because from that timeline, the gunman entered the building at 11:33. 2 minutes later, 3 police officers enter. They don't take him out until 12:50, an hour and 20 minutes. And as you said, Saagar, their training guidance that they're supposed to be following, that they were well trained on.
And did, very
They'd
early,
had multiple
earlier.
recent active shooter drills. This school system had all the latest in terms of surveillance technology. They had dedicated additional resources to this school district police department, 6 officers across all of their schools. The very first thing that manual tells you is the number one goal is stop the killing. They say in no uncertain terms, because of the nature of this response, because of how important it is that you stop the killing of innocent civilians as quickly as possible, it is very likely you may be the only one on the scene.
Yep.
Well, here they were lucky. They had 3 police officers there, and still they don't act. That revelation that they did not even try to get in the door, I just don't even know what to say about that.
And, the one story I really can't get my head around is there's that woman who was a mother who was placed in handcuffs, by federal marshals on the scene. Then she was, let go. Then she had time to run into the school. Well, it turns out she wasn't just some local mom. Krystal, she heard about the shooting, drove 40 miles. So she had the time to hear about the shooting, drive 40 miles, get placed in handcuffs, get out of handcuffs, run into the school, save her own kids. Well, I don't know what the hell these federal marshals are doing, all during the time before this gunman is actually killed by police. So you have now verified, by the way, a father was tased by police officers for trying to go get his own kids. A mom was placed in handcuffs by federal marshals. Also, these feds, what are you doing? Once again, you guys are on scene keeping moms out of the school to go get their own kids because apparently you're not doing a good enough job of that. And also this gunman is still alive during this entire time.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. The reason the parents were so desperate to go in and get is because they weren't doing anything.
They knew. They could see it.
If you are actively engaged in trying to take this guy, I can understand you don't want parents coming in and interfere. Of course, because not safe for them. It confuses the situation. But when you're standing around 19 dudes in the hallway doing jack shit, of course, if you're a parent, of course, you're going to do everything you can to go in and get your kids. And how about this detail that was also revealed? So not only is the school resource officer not exchanging gunfire with the gunman going in, not actually there on site whatsoever, when he arrives, he chased a teacher that he was confused, thought was the shooter, which also shows you, I don't know if you had a school resource officer in your high school growing up. I did as well. He knew all of us. He was there every day. We all had, a relationship, but he certainly knew all the teachers. So I continue to have a lot of questions. Another question I have is, the gunman shoots his grandmother in the face. She and the neighbors call 911. That house was very close to the school. School
Apparently
system
she
should
used
be
to work at the school too.
Immediately locked down. When you have a gunman on the loose within a mile of the school. That should have been an immediate lockdown. So I have a question about that as well. There is so much here still, I think, that is being covered up and that we don't know. We are learning more about, concerning behavior from the gunman before all of this happened. Let's go ahead and put ABC News up on the screen. They say they spoke with over a dozen people who say the Texas gunman sent them concerning messages online in the days leading up to the shooting. A little bit of this we've covered, but he seemed to be messaging a bunch of kind of random girls and women that he barely knew, sending them pictures of this gun and saying things like, "I've got a surprise for you and I can't tell you yet." Another thing that was really creepy that he kept telling people is, if you follow me or you add me, I'm going to make you famous. Making some comments like that, threatened to rape people online. All kinds of concerning behavior here ahead of this horrific shooting. It's also come out that he had asked his sister to buy him a gun. The sister had refused. So clearly, every interaction that people had with this dude, they knew that there was something that was really off here.
Yeah, and look, for the family, there's still a lot of questions here. In terms of his personal interactions, it looks he clearly had a screwed up home life. His mom was a drug addict. His own grandma was trying to evict the mother. But, with the sister, apparently with his uncle, he'd been on hunting and shooting sprees. With that, there's still not a lot that's come out. His own father has come out and said, "Oh, this is not who my little boy was." It's like, yeah, okay. In terms of how the family is looking to spin it. And I think those people have a lot to answer for in terms of why exactly there were no reports there. Same, this streaming, I don't know what this thing is, Yubo?
Yeah.
It's like a social network for streamer. Yeah, I'm showing my age here. But basically people—
Ella tried to explain it to me.
All right. So there's gamers, and it's like a social network for people who live stream gaming. Okay, makes, I guess, enough sense. But he was meeting people on this website and had told multiple of them that he basically was planning on carrying out a school shooting, enough so that he was reported also on the site, like users who were gaming with him reported some of his concerning behavior. So I also have a lot of questions for Yubo. I'm like, did you flag any of these to law enforcement? I mean, I think that the ultimate question here is, how well known was he to law enforcement prior to all of this? We know for certain that law enforcement had visited his house on multiple occasions. Given the fact that so many of these school shooters have previous interactions, or not even school shooters, mass shooters, have previous interactions with law enforcement, with the FBI, we have to know whether they had an open file, a case, a tip, anything that they can go back and they can crawl through. So that's a major one that we have here. And the final detail, which is just so insane here on the police, you found this. I can't even get my head around this. Just put it up there on the screen, which is that officials say that law enforcement entities now across the state have actually been called in by the Uvalde police, because not just to supplement their police force, but to provide protection to the officers and the mayor following the heavy criticism and the threats. And look, I'm not gonna, feed the beast here, but, the actual incident commander on the scene has not been seen in several days since the actual response here. And, apparently he's receiving a lot of heavy criticism and threats, but I mean, there's just a hell of a lot of irony, Krystal, that whenever they need help, they have to call in the cavalry. And I'm not endorsing anything, and I don't think, look, let the process play out, etc. But just pretty amazing. It's like when they need help, when they need support, then people are coming in order to guard them. But whenever little kids needed them, they're standing out in the hallway doing absolutely nothing. So.
Yeah, they're getting the backup that those kids never got. I mean, I think we were talking before we started the show, and I will never be over this. And I think the reason this has touched such a nerve with the nation is not just because of the horrific loss of these young lives, but the thought of how they were abandoned by the people who were supposed to help them. There was one little girl who I was reading said to her family, why did they do this to us? We're good kids. There they are in the room, hiding, calling 911. Please help us.
I know. And
no one for over an hour came to their rescue. And it's just horrific. It's just horrific. There's just no other words to put to it.
I think that's right.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.